Who even reads this stuff anymore? The voice came from the back of the classroom, loud, sarcastic, way too comfortable for someone who just started school that week. Ms. Nadine Caldwell paused mid-sentence, chalk still in hand, and looked up from the board. It was Preston Cavanaugh, 16, smug, arms crossed over a $300 hoodie, slouched in his chair like he'd bought the building and was just visiting to check on his investment. A few students chuckled, not because it was funny, but because it was Preston. And Preston was new, rich, white, and clearly used to people laughing when he opened his mouth. Preston raised his voice and mimicked a thick southern accent, her accent. And then the little slave boy said, "Yes, sir, I's gonna pick that cotton real fast, sir." He doubled over laughing like he'd just killed at open mic night. A couple of kids laughed again, this time nervously. Miss Caldwell said nothing. She just stood still, like a statue. Except her eyes. Her eyes were on fire, not with rage, but with something deeper, something that made the entire room fall silent in seconds. No yelling, no slamming books, or sending him to the office. She simply turned and walked back to her desk, picked up a notebook, clicked a pen, and spoke. Preston. His name floated across the room like a feather, but landed with the weight of a brick. "You'll be staying after class today," he smirked. "What for?" She looked up, smiling just slightly. "To start your assignment." The class looked around, confused. There was no assignment, at least not one she had told them about. But nobody asked questions, not when Ms. Caldwell used that voice. It was the kind of voice that didn't beg for attention. It commanded it, not with volume, but with certainty. Preston shrugged. Whatever. But something in his voice cracked, just barely, like he wasn't quite as in control of the room as he thought. The bell rang 10 minutes later. Everyone scrambled. Backpacks zipped. Sneakers squeaked on tile. Eyes were everywhere, except on Preston. He stayed seated, watching her, waiting for the lecture, waiting for her to bring the hammer down. Instead, she opened her top drawer and pulled out a plain folder. No markings, no label, just old manila, soft from time and use. She slid it across the desk to him. "You'll open that when you get home, not before, and you'll come back tomorrow with your answer." He narrowed his eyes. "Answer to what?" She didn't blink. "To whether you want to keep pretending, or if you're ready to learn something real." He let out a short laugh. "Lady, I've been to 3 different schools in the last year. You think I haven't seen real? You've seen money," she said, her voice still soft. "Not truth." The folder sat there between them like a live wire. Preston didn't touch it, just leaned back, stared her down, waiting for her to fold. But she never did. And for the first time in a long time, Preston Cavanaugh didn't have a comeback. But before he could decide whether to throw the folder in the trash or actually open it, he'd learned just how serious Ms. Caldwell was, and how far she was willing to go to teach him a lesson he'd never forget. Preston didn't open the folder that night. He tossed it on his marble desk in his oversized bedroom in Buckhead, Georgia, where the lights dimmed by remote and his PS5 sat under a 75-inch TV he barely played anymore. He scrolled through his phone, watched half a video, and muted it. Then he stared at the folder, still there, unbothered, silent, waiting. By midnight, he was pacing, not out of fear. At least that's what he told himself. He just couldn't stop thinking about her face, that calm, that confidence, the way she didn't even flinch when he mocked her. He'd seen teachers cry, seen them scream, get red-faced and overwhelmed. Ms. Caldwell? She didn't break a sweat, and that annoyed him. The next day, he showed up early, not to apologize, not even to talk. He just wanted to watch, see what kind of spell this woman had on the rest of the school, because clearly they liked her. She walked through the halls, and students greeted her like she was a celebrity, not out of fear, out of respect. Seniors fist-bumped her. Freshmen smiled and waved, and every teacher who passed gave her a nod, a real one, not fake. He sat in the back of her class again, arms folded. This time, she didn't call on him, didn't acknowledge him, just kept teaching like he was part of the furniture. And the weird part? The lesson wasn't bad. They were reading The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois. But she wasn't just talking about the book. She was talking about the people behind it, the context, the history, the humanity, and the students. They were into it. Preston noticed this kid, Jerome, he thought his name was, leaned forward like he was hanging on to every word. That's when it hit him. This wasn't just a class. This was her room, her space, her rules, and somehow, even without raising her voice, she ran it like a boss. He stayed after again, folder still untouched in his bag. Miss Caldwell didn't ask. Instead, she handed him an envelope. This, she said, is your next step, if you're serious. I haven't even looked at the first one. That's your choice.